everyone. Welcome to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter. Thank you so much for joining us. First, I would like to give a sincere apology to Dr. Greg. Those of you who remember who he is, was it Fabio meets Bill Nye? He was a very, very smart guy, ripped, just completely jacked, and Dr. Greg has been on the show several times. We haven't talked about COVID in a while, and we have him, and it completely my fault. My fault. I had him booked for today for a discussion on long COVID. The mortality rates from COVID have not returned to their pre-COVID levels, and there are a number of hypotheses as to why that may be. He really knows what he's talking about when it comes to COVID and its effect on that. We've sent him some articles on discussions on mortality rates and why they are still high. There's a number of reasons for that. So we will be scheduling that show for tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. So that will be tomorrow, regular time. Hopefully Azandring will be able to join us too. Today has just not been the day. Azandring is not able to make it, and I, of course, inadvertently had scheduled. I hadn't locked in my mind Dr. Greg for today, and it just one thing ahead of another. So thank you all very much for your patience as we go forward anyway. So where do we stand with the shutdown? Well, the Senate has passed a bill that would end the shutdown. It's, quote, a compromise. It's not. The Dems really took kind of a shellacking in this, but we're going to talk about what that means and why. It's now going on to the House, which is going to have a floor meeting on it, I believe, at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And if they sign it, if it passes, which I suspect it will, it's only because it did so with Trump's approval, which means it will be signed and the government will be reopened. Don't expect SNAP checks to return right away, but slowly but surely things will start reopening in the U.S. government. So 40 days, what exactly happened? And yeah, no, we don't have we don't have Lance here either. That will be Thursday. We'll still be doing our regular Thursday show. So 2 shows tomorrow and a regular Thursday show. So I want to talk a bit about what we do, and tomorrow actually as well, 3 p.m. tomorrow, and right now it's linked at, there's a link at the top. We're going to be talking about the judiciary, which we haven't talked a lot about and has been absolutely remarkable. The lower levels of the judiciary, which constitutes 95% of it, which is the circuit courts, the district courts, all the federal judges, have ruled 94% of the time against Donald Trump and his administration. 94%. Eileen Cannon was a notable exception who got thrashed at least twice, if not 3 times, depending on your definition of thrashed, by the appeals court for just how biased she was. That Jack Smith continued with her, it blows my mind. I don't know why he didn't demand she recuse herself after the first one. Nonetheless, it's going to be a little... hopefully we'll see the rest of Jack Smith's files. We'll discuss that. But the biggie is, her notwithstanding, I'm going to play a video for you. This is one we've played before. In my mind, is terrifying. And what makes it terrifying is it is irrefutable proof that Donald Trump has dictatorial mindset and tendencies. The reason is because he created this propaganda using taxpayer funding. It is deliberately terrifying. It is deliberately scaring. It's deliberately intimidating, and he wants the U.S. government to intimidate you. That's why he put this video on the White House website. And so let's play it for you. Hear it, and here we go.
Coming down!
That was the arrest of the so-called sandwich thrower, the man who in D.C. threw a Subway sandwich at a police officer who was wearing full tactical gear. Now, that man agreed to turn himself in. And that man agreed to turn himself in. And rather than just let him come to court for throwing a sandwich at a police officer, they went through all that. They recorded it. And we know that Kristi Noem is doing the same thing. They're recording and they're creating propaganda videos. And that's what we've seen, especially in South America. You see these regimes creating these videos. This is what, people often say, why did Nazi Germany record itself doing so many horrible things? Because they didn't think it was horrible. And because that's what fascists like to do. They like to record and show people what they're doing. That's why Trump likes to be front and center at everything. It's staggering. There's an old saying, you can either do something or take the credit for it. Obama was much more of a get something done kind of guy than take the credit for it. When he got a Nobel Peace Prize that he honestly, genuinely did not deserve. And I worked on his campaign, and I was just like, I feel bad saying this, but he hasn't done anything to deserve this yet. He stood up, and that's the first thing he said. He said, as in his acceptance speech, I accept this as a promise that there are great things expected of me, and that I must remember that there are other people who need the help of the strongest country in the world. And as a recognition that my becoming president of that country is a milestone for peace for all mankind. That's about as humble as you could. Trump would say anything like that if he got a peace prize, even if it was one he did deserve. Anyways, that the man who threw the sandwich was arrested. The U.S. government lied and said that he was indicted on felony charges of assaulting a police officer, but they couldn't actually indict him. The reason was the grand jury refused to do it. They found insufficient evidence for a felony charge. Well, they can't just let him get away. He threw a sandwich at someone. So, it's not just someone, he threw and it's that because the video went viral. One of the things I love is the legal analysis of this. And they say, basically, if the video hadn't gone viral, nobody would have cared. It was because the video went viral and this guy was caught in the act of making them look silly and of showing them he wasn't afraid. That's what this was about. He wasn't afraid. Just threw the sandwich at the guy. He turned and ran afterwards to give him a run for their money, which he did. But he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid to turn himself in. Now you see the video of this is why he should be afraid. This is what we're going to do. We're going to charge him with misdemeanor, assaulting assaulting. What is there? Okay, can we, yes, we can include, if the officer's feelings were reasonably hurt, you can actually, okay, so we'll just go for the lowest assault level there is in a misdemeanor charge and see if we can do that. The court was fair when his side tried to have the charges thrown out, basically because the sandwich clearly was found on the ground whole, and the officer perjured himself and said that he had gotten mustard all over his uniform, and there was actually a ring of onions on his radio when he tried to. I'm just okay. I just need a minute, and he could smell it, and he just described the smell in court. And all that shit was just utter horse shit. And he got busted by the defense attorney. Like, here's a picture of it on the ground after it hits you. It's still wrapped. Can you identify the kind of sandwich it is? Can you identify if it's even got mustard in it? It was just a run by sandwich. Yes. And then the other side demanded, I forget what they demanded, but the judge was fair. Jury came back and said, no, this is the dumbest thing we've ever heard of, and let the guy go. So all of that you just saw, the arrest for this guy who's on America's Most Wanted and all that other good stuff, jury found him not guilty, and he went home. Or a sandwich. That's what scares the living daylights out of me, but it also shows that at least a significant portion of the judiciary is still working. 94% of the time, when the Trump administration has found itself before a district or circuit judge, they've lost. This includes the Abrego Garcia, which we've covered from all of that, and the number of times they've ended up in front of him. And this is including not just the case, but when they came up and said, oh, well, we inadvertently misplaced him, we don't know where he is. And the defense said, we make a motion that they be ordered to find him. The judge said, yeah, go find him. See, judges weren't taking any of the administration's shit. Same thing when it came to the deployments. Now, the numbers invert when it gets to the Supreme Court, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But anyways, I just realized I'm doing tomorrow's show tonight. We're going to discuss all of that tomorrow. The judiciary is holding together. It's holding together well, but there are cracks starting to show. Some judges are resigning. Other judges are writing extraordinary rulings, and the Supreme Court is not taking any responsibility for any of its atrocious actions, screwing with those below it. So tomorrow night, 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a discussion on that. What we're actually here to discuss tonight, and again, I started going, it was the sandwich. It just got me derailed. Tonight, we're going to talk about the government shutdown, longest in history, not yet over, but a couple of interesting things that you should know. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that people don't often know about how this kind of stuff operates, goes on in the background. You see it all the time if you know to look for it. Happens all the time. Johnson, for example, ordered everybody home. He said, you guys need to leave and go back to your districts. Well, they work in Washington, but none of them live in Washington. In fact, you can't be a congressman from Minnesota unless you live in Minnesota. So in order to get work done, you've got to fly back and forth, and usually you don't, you'll fly to Washington for the week and then come home for the weekends. But when he ordered all of them home, they can't all just get onto a plane and be there for a vote in the next 7, 8, 9 hours. They can if they're staying, but he ordered them home. He did this to signal to the Democrats in the Senate that he wasn't playing around. They were going to stay shut down as long as it took. Now, my suspicion is, and we'll get into this in a minute, that Trump made it crystal clear he was not losing on ACA, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. the subsidies aren't huge. The subsidies aren't a really big deal. It wouldn't have cost them a whole heck of a lot to continue them for 1 year, which was the final deal that the Democrats had offered, and it would have been part of the continuing resolution, which they're already in the budget right now anyway. It's just that they happen to be expiring. And he didn't mind continuing the tax cuts for billionaires, which cost a heck of a lot more out of the budget. Having said that, Johnson sent everybody home. He has now ordered them back, and they are to appear for a 4 p.m. vote on reopening the House. If the vote passes, and it's my understanding there's no reconciliation, they're just passing the bill as they got it from the Senate, which makes sense because the Senate didn't do much except say that the Senate would vote in December on the ACA. It then goes to Trump, who signs it. Government is now reopened. It takes a while for people to get back to their offices. The Democrats, I've watched a lot on this, and ABC, CNN, CBS. I've watched Colbert's monologue. I've watched Jon Stewart. I've watched 𝐒𝐚𝐬, and they've all said a lot of very funny things about this, and they've all been phenomenally critical of the Dems for caving. So let's talk about whether they did cave. They caved. They absolutely caved. But how much and by why we'll get into. They caved far more than you think. It was a complete and utter collapse. They caved. Now, if you listen to Chuck Schumer, he will say, I'm voting no because I will never vote to reopen the government so long as we haven't taken care of the Affordable Care Act. Yeah, he's lying. He's lying because while it's true he would never vote, he would order other people to vote, which is what he's done. Something that's very interesting is all of the 8 people who crossed the aisle aren't up for re-election again anytime soon. In the Senate, the term is 6 years. So none of the 8 who crossed are up in the midterms or in the next full election cycle. 2 of them are retiring. They're never up ever again. That's pretty convenient. What I see when I see that is Chuck Schumer caving to pressure from the middle. The far left says stay closed at all costs. And there's gonna be some human cost to this because of the SNAP problems. But everyone's gonna blame the Republicans. That's what they're doing. Is Jon Stewart of The Daily Show falls into that camp, and all the evidence is that the Republicans are getting a shellacking over this thing. So keep it closed, and everyone will see that all we're trying to do is say keep the status quo on healthcare, and they're willing to starve people to prevent that. Then you've got moderates and or people on the right side of the Democratic Party who say, look, we're going to lose. That I'm aware of, and I've gone through the last 4 shutdowns, the party that was making the requests never actually got the requests they were making. A shutdown has never once successfully forced the actual request that the requesting party was asking for. 3 times out of the last 4, it's been Republicans making requests, and in all 3, they lost. And in all 3, they came out looking worse than the Democrats. It's a tactic that the Republicans use quite regularly and has never worked for them. So the center Democrats were saying, we're going to lose eventually, and the reason is Trump will not cave. Trump will not cave. And I think one of the things that really did it was the party, Halloween party, and we'll get to that in a second. You would think that would encourage them to keep it closed. I think they said, we've gotten as much as we can out of this. we're going to bail. So, but at some point, right now there are calls for Chuck Schumer to resign. This is not the first time he's had the calls. It's the loudest he's had them. The last time was pretty loud as well. We'll see what happens. Chuck Schumer absolutely pulled the trigger on we are going to cave. And what he did was he went around and found the exact minimum number of Democrats that needed to flip, went to the ones that had the least that they would suffer for it, especially in New Hampshire. Oh, the New Hampshire senator from New Hampshire, she was sitting there going, "I will never cave because I have a constituent who says the only reason he's alive is because his cancer was found by his regular screening he got through his health insurance that he could only get through the ACA subsidies. He's alive because of them, and he came to thank me for that." The next day, she said, "Well, I've been talking to my constituents, and they said they want their SNAP benefits back, and they want to be paid." So that's what she said the next day when she voted to end the filibuster and reopen government. So he found 8 senators willing to make the flip for him, ordered them to make the flip, and as a party, they decided with the best plausible deniability. And he's out there saying, "Well, I would never cave on this. It was just a," but you won't see him throwing them under the bus. And they're still members of the Democratic Party. And the reason is they're falling on their sword. He decided it was time to end it. They got all they were going to get, and he negotiated the flip with the 8 senators who could most absorb the hit, and everybody else just condemns it. Even the ones who, inside the party, said, "Yeah, we need to end this now." We don't know how many there are. We don't know who they are, because they all have plausible deniability, and they're all going to say, "We got hosed," which to some extent they did. The question isn't, did the Democrats fold? The question isn't, did the Democrats get anything? The question is, did they do as well as they could have? Could they have gotten any better? I don't know, but we're going to talk about some reasons for or against, or how this may work. One of the things that I think convinced people most to keep the government open, keep the government shut down, and for the Democrats to keep fighting, was that the Democrats were doing very well in the polls. Trump's numbers are phenomenally low. They've been going down. And it was seen as inevitable that the Democrats could basically keep the government closed as long as they wanted to, because all they were fighting for was to keep the ACA benefits that already exist. And meanwhile, what was Trump doing? Trump today won his second appeal at the U.S. Supreme Court on the shadow docket to only have to pay SNAP partially. So the Republicans are trying to end SNAP payments, trying to take away people's food, while the Democrats are trying to actually improve their health care. That seems like a winning argument. In my view, that I trend towards that's a winning argument. Trump then decided to have Trump had a Halloween party, which is now his second party in recent, about a week. The Halloween party, the theme for the party was The Great Gatsby, which is, I'm going to say, a terrible theme for a party. Now, what I'd like to try to do, let me. So, he had a Great Gatsby themed party. What did this party look like? Well, That is a woman dancing in a champagne glass. She welcomed people at the party while writhing around in her glass. Let's see, these are two of the attendees at that party. It's one of the cars that was parked. Again, Great Gatsby themed party. The glamour shots. These women were dancing around with the feather fans throughout the party as people were eating. And they were also having people take shots with it. Let's see, we do have this is this, I remind you, was occurring literally as he was arguing to cut SNAP benefits and the U.S. government was shut down. This is all at Mar-a-Lago. That is a custom glass. It says Mar-a-Lago, and it's got the Great Gatsby. It's made all of glass. You pour champagne in through the top. It comes out. That's caviar. Dancers. She joined the rest of the troupe at the front later on in the party. I mean, talk about tone deaf. He is throwing a Great Gatsby party literally while the government is shut down and people don't know how to feed their children. One of the problems is Fox News isn't necessarily covering this. The outrage over this, I expected to be more. I think a lot of people expected it to be more. This is another video I want to play of it. You may see some of the same things, but it's also got some footage that wasn't in the first one. Imagine if Obama had done this during the shutdown, and people have asked, where is Trump in terms of trying to work and trying to help resolve these issues? And the answer is he's taking away people's SNAP benefits and demanding that he not have to pay any more out of a fund that's already funded. So I think what happened after this is reasonably simple. There was some outrage over this. Oh, there you go. Look at that. That's a Gatsby, and you pour it says Mar-a-Lago. So I don't know how much that must have cost, but I'd have to guess tens of thousands of dollars. It's made of glass. You pour the champagne in the top, and you can watch it wind through Gatsby's face, and there you go. I think Dems saw this and expected huge outrage. There was outrage over it, but it wasn't huge. It wasn't enough to end his presidency. And the reality is, everybody knows that this is who the guy is. And I think after about a week after that, and first of all, again, Trump has just thrown another party that's been described as decadent as that. We haven't gotten any pictures of it, but he's just thrown another party. I think it was yesterday, when there wasn't that much outrage. And to be fair, I get why there wasn't that much outrage, because it's like, what point is there in being outraged? You're more concerned with eating. And Jimmy Kimmel, when I was watching him and he was talking about the Democrats caving, which they did, and it's not just that a few have pointed out that, hey, if those eight all flipped with Schumer's agreement. He won't say that. And they all say that they've been speaking with leadership the entire time. Yeah, they've gotten permission from the Democratic leadership. The Democrats decided it was time to end this, and they ended it. Again, there's a lesson that the Republicans have not yet learned, which is you don't tend to win policy agreements through this type of negotiation. All you do is you really piss people off. And it seems like the Affordable Care Act might be the exception. It looks like Schumer basically felt, okay, we've gotten as much as we're going to get. And now, we're just hurting people and there's nowhere to go but down. There are people who disagree with that strongly. But it's a matter of opinion either way. This is uncharted territory. And again, what we've seen from the shutdowns, if your goal is to enact policy, a shutdown doesn't work. It hasn't worked for the Republicans, and they've tried it at least 3 times in very recent history. And it's failed. They did not get what they achieved, and they helped the Democrats. So Schumer made a calculation. He's ahead. The Democrats are up 8 right now. They were down 6. So that's a change. But if people can't eat, they're going to blame anybody and everybody in power. And why shouldn't they? So he makes a calculation. This didn't bring their numbers up. This didn't bring support up. How long do they have to wait before there's enough support to really get him the very simple and reasonable request of extending Affordable Care Act subsidies for 1 year? That's it. That's all he wants, and they won't do it because they can't. They can't. Trump would never agree to it. He would tell Johnson not to bring people back to vote on it, even if the Senate agreed to it, and he's not going to get the Senate to agree to it. He lost. He lost. He lost. Always tend to lose. But that party, hopefully, that brings some people to the side of seeing who Trump really is. You've got to be a psychopath to be able to hold a party like that while telling courts you want to cut off SNAP benefits. Because that's what he was doing at that time. It's astonishing. So, let's see. So what is the deal and what do they have? The deal is to reopen the government through January, which means if Schumer wants to take another shot at this, he can. He can do it in January. So he hasn't emptied all of their guns. There are 3 funding bills that go with this that are more than just a continuing resolution that will actually fund parts of the government going forward, and SNAP is one of them. SNAP gets a year of funding. SNAP funding isn't up again till August now. So even when if they have another shutdown in January, SNAP is off the table. Now, strategically speaking, this is a problem for Schumer because that's where he would hope that the pressure would come from. It would come from red states that rely on SNAP telling the president, what the hell are you doing? But that never materialized, and I don't think he wanted to play that game anymore with people getting food. If it didn't really materialize after that party, and again, the reason it didn't was because Fox News did not air that party. If they had, things might have turned out differently, but Fox News did what Fox News always does. So I think Schumer said, people are losing their benefits. We're not going to get any better than what we're getting. And what did they get? A promise to vote on extending, an up or down vote on extending the ACA subsidies. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. That was given to Schumer for one reason and one reason only, to save face. That vote isn't going to pass. The Democrats don't own the Senate. How are they going to pass it? Schumer can add to 100. He knows that bill, slated for a vote in December, isn't going to pass. But he can make a lot of hay out of that publicly and said, here we are trying to cut benefits. We ended up having to stop the filibuster and to let government reopen because Trump literally was asking the Supreme Court to let him starve people. We didn't want to be on that side, so yeah, we caved. Here we are voting on the ACA, and they said no to that. So they want to take away your food, they want to take away your ACA. My guess is that's where he's going. That's my guess. He can't say that. Especially after trying to get so many people to rally behind this and thinking that this had a shot at working. And it hasn't in the past, so who knows? Even if it somehow cleared the Senate, Johnson wouldn't even bring it to the floor of the House. He doesn't have to bring anything to the floor of the House without a discharge petition. He doesn't have to bring anything he doesn't want to. So he's not going to bring it to the floor. And even if he did, and even if it passed in the House, it's going to get vetoed by Mr. Obamacare is the worst thing ever. And did you know that Obama is making 15 to 20% profits of everything that goes through Obamacare? Not true, but Trump has retruthed that. It was I think it was an Onion article or something like that Trump read that said because Obama's name was on the act, which it wasn't originally, it was Republicans that put the name there, trying to make it look bad. And Obama was like, yeah, great, call it Obamacare. And then the Onion did this thing saying, oh, yeah, now that his name's on it, he's going to license it, and 15% of all health insurance goes straight into Obama's pocket. That was the Onion. And Trump has gone out and truthed about how this is what's really happening, so Obamacare has to be, obliterated. It was a conspiracy theory? Yeah, okay. So it was either the Onion, it was one of those things. It's completely unhinged and obviously not true and would not have passed, by the way, if it were true. So, at any rate, so that's what we have. Yeah, now it's the Onion if they bought out Alex Jones. Oh, Alex Jones. Oh, dear Lord. I really hope I never have to hear that name again. So, where do we stand? The Dems did cave. They caved completely. They caved with the acquiescence and explicit authority from Chuck Schumer. He says that's not what happened. He's lying. He and the leadership picked the 8 least vulnerable Democrats. It wasn't 9 Democrats. And they all did it at the same time, right? It's just like one day everybody is unified. The next day, exactly the number needed to pass. 8. Flipped. And all of them untouchable by their constituents. They can't, there's no vote for any of these guys for like 4 years. And 2 aren't coming back. So, yeah, it was planned, and who knows where they'll go from there. In the past, one of the last 4 government closures, ended up with the Dems +8 in the polls. From wherever they had started, they had in one case started at +2, in one case started at -2 to the Republicans. 6 months later, they were down to +2. This kind of caving always pisses a lot of people off, which is why they do it the way they do it, which is, well, we didn't cave. It was just 8 people who flipped over and they voted their and that's how the system works. But believe me, the Republicans are all for you, or sorry, the Democrats are all for you, and we're always going to be. And so it gives them plausible deniability, and it mitigates the damage going forward. So that's it. I wholeheartedly agree with anybody who says that they caved. I don't have a metric by which I can say whether it was a good idea or a bad idea because I'm not psychic enough to predict what would have happened if they had kept going. The reality is they're trying to save lives by making healthcare more affordable. That's 27, I think it's 27 million we're going to lose healthcare. But at the cost of SNAP benefits that Trump is literally holding a gun to children's heads for this, and there's something to be said for not negotiating with the terrorists. But on the flip side, what are you going to do? They're your constituents too. And if there's another way, a longer way, like having a vote, you lose the vote, but at least you get to say, "Hey, look at what we've done. We realized people were suffering, so we reopened the government. We had our vote. They shut it down. They also took SNAP. I don't know what it's gonna. I don't know. I think, as I said before, the history of these has never gone the way of the people who were holding it up with a request. Usually, it's Republicans. It's never gone that way ever. There's no example I'm aware of where the minority party shut down the government with a filibuster, made a demand, and got that demand. Usually because the people always turn on them and say, hey, I want to be able to fly. I want to be able to, it just, and the pain becomes way too great. In this case, that appears to be what happened, despite the fact that the Dems are still going up for doing this. And that's where the resentment and anger comes from. That's why Jimmy Kimmel, Jon Stewart, that's why editorials on various news organizations are slamming the Dems, because the Dems were not only winning, but still heading in the direction of winning. Don't know what Chuck Schumer's thinking was. I've made a few guesses and surmises about it. He's gambling with people's lives. The problem is they all are, all the time. The president's gambling with people's lives all the time. That was one of the things that Obama said. You wake up in the morning and you go to bed at night, and every day you've killed someone. The question is, just are you killing as few people as possible, and is it the right people when you have a choice? So I don't know. There is a very big part of me that feels like they were winning and they should have stayed in it. Dems have a history of bailing when they're ahead, but or when they're gaining, I should say, and then just handing it over to the Republicans. Having said that, the Republicans shoot themselves in the foot just as often as not. Anyway, we'll see. Like I said, I showed you the party. The fact that party didn't resonate with MAGA in a negative way, and probably just because it didn't get out enough, or again they were so busy with I don't know. So the answer is that's the shutdown in a nutshell. Those in Congress who say, "Oh well, it was just the 8 who defected," no, the party leadership decided that the party was going to give up. And they handpicked those 8 because those 8 could most absorb the blowback from giving up. Those that know that, which is a decent number of people, and anyone who's covered Congress at all for any length of time, is saying it's all Chuck Schumer's fault. And he's going to say, well, I can't control everybody. He's got more control than he says, and in this case, he absolutely told them to do it. So we'll see what happens, but that is the shutdown in a nutshell. That's how we got. And I just want to make sure that there isn't anything else I'm missing. I just sort of wanted to cover. Let's see. A lot of people have been getting very upset about it on both sides, and the 1 year extension got one thing. So they're not. I saw a thing from Adam Kinzinger, which I really liked, and he's a straight shooter, and he's just like, oh, of course. He goes, look, the Dems threw in the towel. He goes, this is why they did it. Of course, it was, you want to blame anyone, blame Schumer. He's the one who decided it, but he has to keep his coalition together too. The Dems aren't all one unit either. So that's what we've got, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to quickly check and see if there are anything in the side chat. Like I said, tomorrow we will be covering the state of the judiciary, which is it's holding together, but it's in a little disarray over the differences between how the Supreme Court is handling things and how the regular courts are handling things. So we're going to talk about that. Then tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have on Dr. Greg to talk to us about the mortality rates in COVID, why we still see higher mortality rates, what long COVID has been doing to us as a species, and what to expect from that going forward. And then Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will have on Commander Lance McMillan, and we're going to see if we can get one of the Malamutes to We'll get a puppy, because I think we need a puppy. Pyro, I see what you did. No. Oh, it's not on fire, though, so it's good. I've still got, like I said, it actually is part of the set. It's back there, but not using the set right now. So, all right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Hope that you enjoyed the show. Well, once again, my apologies to Greg for totally screwing that up. Liz Andring joined us in the live chat, which is nice. He is in the middle of shipping something. I said I had no problem with him missing a show. I just expect a cut from his shipping. I arrived at the So let's start the show over again. Now that Greg Terry's here, we can begin. We'll do the real show. Um, so, anyways, yeah, you did. Okay, I earned it. I earned it. No, I did. Wait a minute. No, I'm not. I'm not going to be a Dem and just capitulate that quickly. We'll get you. All right. So I look forward to seeing you on our next scheduled show tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about the state of the judiciary in this country amid a undeniably corrupt U.S. Supreme Court, which is trying to rule a judiciary that wants to do the right thing. Most judges want to do the right thing, and so we'll talk about that. Dr. Greg on 9 p.m. tomorrow, and then Commander Lance McMillan 9 p.m. the day after that. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, for the state of the judiciary, which this may redirect to, I don't know, or I'll see if somebody else is on. We'll figure it out. Oh, Daddy Jim, 10 pounds sterling. Thank you, Nick, and the fantastic mods. Thank you, sir. We really genuinely and sincerely appreciate your support. I think, I don't know if you came from Greg Terry's channel, but if you did, we'll forgive you for that. And if not, thank God. Got enough of... All right. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow night. Have a good one.